Nigeria now has a 48-member federal cabinet. It follows the confirmation of 3 additional nominees by the Senate. However, Wednesday's screening was halted for several hours after the nominee from Northwest Kaduna State, Balarabe Abbas Lawal, slumped. He later regained consciousness and returned to the chamber. Arise correspondent Omo Bazwaye was there.
Because to me, this is the highest point of my career. To stand before this hall and say things about myself. I feel very, very happy. Today is maybe my happiest day.
The ministerial nominee from Kaduna State, Balarabe Abbas Lawal, was the second of 3 nominees to be screened on Wednesday, and everything was going on pretty well until the point when he stepped on the stage. Just when he had finished telling the lawmakers what he can do and why he's suitable for the job, one of the senators from his state stood up to seek support for the nominee. And just when he was doing this, Lawal suddenly slumped and collapsed, throwing everyone inside the chamber, including the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, into a panic mode.
Can you say water, give me water. Water and sugar. Water and sugar. Get sugar, and water.
Akpabio could be heard calling for help, water, sugar, just about anything to revive Lawal as lawmakers rushed to his aid. The entire episode unfolded on live television before Akpabio could order all cameras out of the chamber. The panic quickly spread to many outside the chamber, especially supporters and family members who had come to rejoice with Lawal in his moment of glory. It, however, didn't take time for paramedics from the National Assembly Clinic to come to his rescue as they quickly stabilized the nominee.
It's basically exhaustion. I got the news just yesterday and I had to come from Kaduna to attend this session. And there were so many things that we need to do. And that was throughout yesterday night, so it was purely exhaustion. And I want to thank the Senate for their understanding, and also the medical team that took care of me, and all the people that are around, and particularly the senators from my state that are around. You can see them around with me. They've been taking care of me since I came here. So this can happen to anybody, and I feel I'm all right now. I've been treated and I'm all right now.
Yes, he's very fit. It's just exhaustion, which can happen to anybody. So he doesn't have any medical issue that can make him not to take up the new role. So he's very okay. I certify him medically fit for the new role.
When the Senate doors reopened, there was not a single word about what had just happened, as the lawmakers simply moved on to the next ministerial nominee, Ayodele Olawande from Ondo State. The Senate had earlier screened the ministerial nominee from Kwara State, Dr. Jamila Bao Ibrahim, who promised to bring her wealth of experience to bear. At the end of the screening, the Senate confirmed all 3 ministerial nominees, including the man from Kaduna State, who President Bola Tinubu had used to replace former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, after the Senate failed to previously confirm his nomination. The Senate then went on to also screen the board members and management of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, who were earlier nominated by President Bola Tinubu in August. Omo Bazwaye, Arise News.
Bring water, bring sugar. But I mean, we're really, really grateful to see that he's healthy, he's well, and the nominees have been confirmed by the Senate. We're fine.
Senate President Medical Doctor Godswill Akpabio. Thanks for his concern. Bring water, bring sugar. I'm sure that Mr. Abbas is doing well. Most importantly, we thank God for life, and we thank God that Mr. Abbas is doing well and is back to life. But it is also a very sad sin that the Nigerian Senate does not have a quick emergency response mechanism. And barely do we have senators in there that could even use a first aid emergency kit. Where is even the first aid emergency kit in the hall? Isn't the hall supposed to have a first aid emergency kit? Is that not supposed to be the safety convention in every public building? A first aid emergency kit? Shouldn't our senators be trained at least to be able to do 1 or 2 maneuvers as regards first aid kits? But what I saw is that people were scampering. In fact, Senator Elisha Abu went out and said, oh, should we bring ambulance? They said, no, don't bring ambulance. So they kept on. How are we sure that sugar and water solution was the way to revive him? And because you think that the Senate ought to have learned, because it's not the first time someone is going to faint. You remember in the House of Reps, Oponde,
Yes.
when he fainted, this was how we scampered, you know, how some people even put their hands in his mouth and all of that. And, you know, we remember that scene. So we need to take learnings and learn better on how to handle emergency. I also suggest if we don't, I should think we have an safety emergency kit, and I should think the senator should be trained at least first level of emergency in the House when things like that happen. Those things can be taught with drills. That's one. Number 2, the nominees that scaled through yesterday, I think it was Dr. Abati that predicted. There was no rigor, as always. I saw the doctor from Kwara State, you know, there was no much rigor in the questions asked. And across all board, the candidates that were there for ministerial nominee, not too much rigor. And it's always the case. Even the fact that, okay, for the first time we have the portfolio they're going to put them in. So maybe our senators should do better at asking those questions. But the good thing is finally we have full complement of the ministers now. And hopefully they will be able to get to work and probably even know why they are there and know what the ministry is about and have that long-awaited retreat and be able to now take it on from there and ensure that they serve the country better. But I'll keep complaining there's a big size of government. I'm happy the Senate have talked about the fact that the government needs to now tell us or give us supplementary budget before they keep spending money. There's a lot of loose financing going on, a lot of money appropriated to be spent and all of that. And the question is to keep asking, where is the money going to come from? Take, for instance, I'd like to ask, this new 35,000 Naira award. Before the government made the announcement, how much cumulatively is going to be the prize money, the cumulative worth of that award? 35,000 Naira for 6 months for all workers. How much is it going to translate to in billions? Where's the money going to come from? I think those are questions we should ask. And those are veritable questions we've not been able to harness properly. Let's run governance effectively. If the government does well, we'll tell them they've done well. But on this, it leaves much to be desired. Ayo.
Okay, well, something new always comes out of the Senate of Nigeria. If people don't go there to weep, they will slump. But at the end of the day, it is the people of Nigeria who have been robbed of an opportunity to hear more extensively from that ministerial nominee, Balarabe Lawal Abbas from Kaduna State. Yes, we thank God that he was revived and he went back, but after that, the Senate had moved on. You know, his fainting spell summarily ended his interrogation by the Senate. So apart from his initial presentation, we didn't get an opportunity to learn from him. What are the lessons that we can take away from this? He has already explained that he was exhausted. He got to know about his nomination just a day to, the appearance in the Senate. And he was in Kaduna. He had to travel all the way down. And he said he stayed overnight preparing for the screening at the Senate. Well, he made it look as if he was going for a JAMB exam or for Cambridge examination. I think, as we have pointed out in this place, there's no rigor in it. He could just have gone there. Nobody is going to ask him any tough questions. We had said, look, these questions will sail through. That's a rubber stamp, Senate so far as it has presented itself. So no surprises. But the lesson that you can draw from this, President Tinubu now has 48 ministers. We don't expect that he will make more appointments because we're already seeing that the government is so overbloated. But for future purposes, if anybody is going for ministerial screening, it's important for the protocol people to make sure that those people are given enough notice. And when you are going for ministerial screening or any type of screening, please eat and sleep before you go there. Prepare, and arrive in Abuja so that you can have a good rest, so that we don't have a pandemic situation such as we had yesterday. It was a pandemic situation, because Professor Pandey introduced this tradition of fainting spells into public appearances in Nigeria. But in any case, as predicted, the 3 persons were passed as expected. Now, number 2, the uncommon Senate president, he likes the phrase uncommon Senate president, provided an uncommon solution. He became a doctor. He started saying, give him water and sugar, give him water and sugar. Well, I tried to double check that, okay, what they talk about in the literature is ORT or ORS, okay? Oral rehydration solution or oral rehydration therapy. Dr. Akpabio left out salt in that combination, but I think someone will have reminded him that, okay, look, ORT or ORS will include salt in the solution. We all keep learning every day, but at least he tried to show concern, and he was calling Dr. Musa, and I come to that. Maybe given the situation that we have seen in the Senate now, maybe we should have a situation in our legislature and in public places whereby there is always a doctor on standby with a first aid kit in case of any emergency, particularly as we have a Senate where some of the members are gerontocrats, managing all kinds of health situations. We shouldn't have to be running helter-skelter, to get immediate response. I can say, for example, that in the villa, there's always a doctor on standby, particularly around the president. There's always a doctor around, and the medical team is never far away. So maybe other, government institutions should adopt the same procedure. We don't know yet what portfolio will be given to the fainting ministerial nominee, but again, we repeat the point that portfolios should be attached. Portfolios were attached to the 2 other persons, now Minister Ibrahim and also Minister Olawande. We always want some clarity so that we can understand, the process. But beyond all of that, Minister Balarabe Abbas should just not stop at the point that, it was exhaustion, I was reading overnight, since this was supposed to be an almighty exam. You should take further care and just do the necessary checks, just to be sure. We can't victimize anybody for health reasons. We are all human beings, but please, there are lessons to be learned from this. And Dr. Akpabio, may well take some crash course in, he cannot stop learning.
He's a doctor of compassion.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
I like that.
I like that. You are saying he left out salt, but he wasn't. But the one that came to your head, in fact, kudos to him.
Okay.
Because you can see the compassion, the love.
When I had water and sugar, I thought the man would say, go and bring jollof rice.
You see,
he could have added jollof rice. The man said, give him jollof rice and pepper soup.
The most important one he forgot to add was prayers. He could have given prayers.
Okay,
like he sent prayers to account number, to bank, to email. Give him prayers.
No, actually, they should have given the fainting minister pepper soup and jollof rice. Give us
So some people have said that perhaps the sugar was to account for glucose, sometimes just to give him that energy, that boost of energy. But what should have been quite an interesting session, because often, usually what should be the case when we have an opportunity to interrogate, to interview, to question potential ministers is a rigorous process where we have an opportunity to get to know the individuals, get to understand their experience and how best fit they are for the job at hand. Because the task of being a federal minister is a huge one indeed, the responsibility enormous. And so what Nigerians expect when you watch those sessions is a very thorough interview process. Interesting at some point, ask difficult questions, and the beauty and the brilliance of it is the ability of the candidates to respond intelligently to those questions. However, I must say that the Senate has disappointed Nigerians on that note. Not just with this cycle, but even with previous cycle. In fact, initially, before, the proceedings of yesterday was overtaken by the fainting spell, when they'd asked Dr. Jamila Bio-Ibrahim about her, when she had given her credentials, the senator representing her constituents was saying, let her just take a bow. Why take a, what is this obsession with taking a bow when people want to get to know their ministers designate? Because many of them, for many of them, their names are just being heard for the first time. And then we have the privilege and the opportunity of knowing their portfolios. So we could ask very specific questions. And also, for both Dr. Bio-Ibrahim and Mr. Olawande, they're going to be given a very critical and sensitive portfolio, which is the Ministry of Youth, making up about 60% of Nigerians who largely have said to have been underserved. And this is the first time we're having them separate from the Ministry of Sports, or at least in this administration, they are separate from the Ministry of Sports. And we also have a Minister of State. We should even ask questions to justify the need for a Minister of State in that particular ministry. We had the opportunity to ask, I know some of the questions, the Not Too Young to Run bill, how would she leverage that to ensure that more young people are participating in the issue of governance and politics? What forum or what other bill would she sponsor to strengthen her ministry? Questions like, how would she leverage the agitations of the youth who were largely at the forefront of the NSAS protests? What would she do to meet these? And both of them. So those were the questions that Nigerians were expecting them to ask. Questions that were stimulating and to give confidence in the personality and the experience and expertise of these two nominees. Unfortunately, we didn't have that. Maybe perhaps, Mr. Olawande would have been grilled further if the incident that happened with Alhaji Balarabe Lawal Abbas didn't happen. Now, going to him, he seemed to have been ready to take on questions. He'd walked to the podium himself unassisted, and so he looked in good health. He didn't betray any signs of ill health. And then whilst into his conversation, the first, when Senator Sunday Katung, Kaduna South Senator from Kaduna State, representing the 3 senators from Kaduna, was endorsing him and just speaking proudly of one of them, the first sign I saw was Senator Kweyong, who was sitting just beside Senator Katung, who then reacted really sharply to see that something had gone awry. And then when we looked at it, he was on the floor and people were trying to resuscitate him. Again, a lot has been said about our first aid response, what could have been done. But I must say kudos to the Senate President. He managed it quite well, even though his solution might not have worked. But in terms of being concerned and looking out for the individual, very good. And then asking the reporters to give some privacy for a closed-door meeting in Senate. Alhaji Abbas is 65 years old, born in 1958 according to his public records. And so he's not very old in that sense. He's at retirement age in terms of the official retirement age, but he still looks like he has some sprite in him to still give. I talked about his track record yesterday in terms of how he served in different federal ministries, the last being SSG to the governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai. So he comes with a wealth of experience. However, whether or not he was able to take more questions because he had fallen ill and the Senate just confirmed him, they wouldn't have had a lot of questions for him because he didn't come with the portfolio himself. So in terms of the direct questions for him, they could, at best, would have asked very general questions about his life, his experience, and things that are not intellectually stimulating or do not give us the opportunity to get to really know the candidate. Let us hope that in the future, as lessons are being learned, that processes like this are not just a tick box. Processes like this are to ensure and to give Nigerians the confidence and the opportunity to get to know in detail the candidates who will then become substantive ministers or perhaps hold very critical and sensitive positions in government. So I believe, 48 ministers, even Dr. Bati and Rufai have said they don't think, I will not be surprised. Anything can happen. There's still slots to break a record and get to 50. At this rate, it looks like ministerial positions are up for the taking, but we do hope that the president would not appoint any further ministers because it's already over-bloated as it is.
And there's still one great minister, Dr. Abati.
Oh, well, yes.